The Dark and the Wicked, directed by Bertino, is a haunting exploration of grief, isolation, and the devastating effects of an unrelenting evil. Released in 2020, this psychological horror film received critical acclaim for its chilling atmosphere, unsettling visuals, and deeply emotional core. Set on a remote Texas farm, the film weaves a tale of familial bonds under siege by a malevolent force. The story begins as siblings Louise and Michael return to their family farm, where their father lies on his deathbed due to a chronic illness. Their mother's disturbed state sets the tone for the horrors that follow. She warns them to leave, but they choose to stay, only to witness her tragic death. That same night, she inexplicably cuts off her own fingers and hangs herself in the barn. This act marks the first indication of the sinister forces lurking on the farm. The siblings soon learn that their mother had been tormented by an unseen presence. The family nurse reveals that she overheard the mother whispering to their father, speaking not to him, but to something unseen. Michael discovers a diary in which their mother documented her fears of a demonic entity preying on their family. The diary reveals her descent into despair, recounting chilling events such as strange whispers at night, shadows moving across the walls, and an oppressive feeling of being watched. Despite their growing dread, Louise and Michael remain on the farm, determined to care for their dying father. At their mother's funeral, they meet a priest named Father Thorn, who claims to have been close to their mother. Later that night, Father Thorn inexplicably appears outside the farm, beckoning to them before vanishing into thin air. The mysterious encounter leaves the siblings unnerved. Meanwhile, the family's ranch hand, Charlie, has a terrifying experience. He sees what appears to be Louise cutting herself repeatedly with a kitchen knife. The entity's manipulation drives him to take his own life in his RV, reinforcing the demon's ability to prey on fear and vulnerability. Louise, unaware of Charlie's fate, attempts to contact him by phone but receives no response. She calls the number Father Thorn gave her, only to discover that the real Father Thorn lives in Chicago and has never been to Texas. This revelation deepens the mystery surrounding the malevolent presence. Louise begins to feel increasingly isolated as strange occurrences multiply. She hears footsteps in the empty house, and objects move on their own. Michael, on the other hand, becomes more withdrawn, struggling to rationalize the unexplainable events. As the siblings' fear intensifies, they witness further horrors, including the brutal slaughter of their herd of goats. The carnage forces them to confront the reality that they are facing a powerful and evil force. Among the dead goats, they find cryptic symbols carved into the barn walls, suggesting a ritualistic origin for the terror they're experiencing. Michael encounters an apparition of his nude mother in the barn. The ghostly figure approaches him before disappearing, leaving him shaken. Louise, meanwhile, has a vivid nightmare of being possessed by the entity. She wakes to find her father levitating against the ceiling, an act that confirms the demon's growing influence. The siblings' attempts to seek help are futile. A visiting doctor informs them that their father's condition is terminal and moving him would likely kill him. The next morning, Michael decides to abandon the farm and return to his wife and daughters. He urges Louise to leave as well. Left alone, Louise faces the entity's wrath. She encounters a young girl claiming to be Charlie's granddaughter, who soon reveals herself to be another of the demon's illusions. Moments later, the nurse, possessed by the entity, stabs herself repeatedly with knitting needles. She then attacks Louise before succumbing to her injuries. Louise's isolation deepens as she begins to question her own sanity. She replays the events in her mind, wondering if there was ever a way to stop the evil or if it was always destined to consume them. Michael's return home leads to a devastating twist. He discovers the lifeless bodies of his wife and daughters in what appears to be a murder-suicide. Consumed by grief and despair, he slits his own throat, only to realize too late that the demon has tricked him. His family was alive all along, and finds him bleeding to death when they return home. The demon's cunning manipulation ensures that no one escapes its clutches. This moment emphasizes the entity's ability to exploit its victims' deepest fears and insecurities, breaking them down mentally and emotionally before taking their lives. Back at the farm, Louise awakens to find her father on the verge of death. As she sits with him, she begins to feel the weight of the entity's presence suffocating her. She hears her mother's voice whispering warnings, but it's unclear whether it's a memory or another trick of the demon. When her father passes, the entity claims her as its final victim. Louise's death is depicted as a quiet surrender, leaving the audience with a chilling sense of inevitability. The film ends with the haunting suggestion that the demon's influence extends far beyond the farm, leaving viewers to question the nature of its power. The Dark and the Wicked masterfully portrays themes of grief and isolation. The siblings' return to the farm represents their confrontation with long-buried emotions, while the desolate setting amplifies their vulnerability. The film's depiction of the demon as a manifestation of despair and guilt highlights how these emotions can distort reality and lead to tragedy. The strained family relationships and inherited trauma add another layer of depth, suggesting that the evil force symbolizes generational pain. The recurring theme of neglect, both emotional and physical, is mirrored in the decaying farm, a visual representation of the family's internal disintegration. The film is rich with symbolism. The slaughtered goats evoke sacrificial imagery, while the false priest represents the entity's power to manipulate faith and trust. The recurring motif of knives and self-mutilation underscores the loss of control experienced by the characters. The farm itself, with its creaking doors and shadowy corners, serves as a metaphor for the inescapable grip of the past. These details enhance the film's atmosphere and make its horror all the more unsettling. The ambiguous ending leaves much open to interpretation. Was the demon a literal entity, or was it a projection of the family's psychological torment? This uncertainty blurs the line between supernatural and emotional horror, making the film a deeply thought-provoking experience. The lack of resolution forces viewers to grapple with their own interpretations, leaving an imprint long after the credits roll. For me, the most chilling aspect of The Dark and the Wicked is the entity's subtlety. Rather than attacking outright, it erodes hope, faith, and trust, isolating its victims until they succumb. This resonates deeply, reflecting real-world struggles with unseen, overwhelming forces. The film's relentless pacing and refusal to provide easy answers ensure that its impact lingers long after the credits roll. What did you think of The Dark and the Wicked? Did the ending leave you with lingering questions? Let's discuss this haunting tale together. Thank you for diving into the haunting world of The Dark and the Wicked with me. It's a film that challenges us to confront our deepest fears and emotions, and I hope you found our discussion both enlightening and engaging. As we wrap up, remember to carry the lessons of resilience and hope with you. No matter how dark the path may seem, there's always light ahead. Have a fantastic day filled with positivity and inspiration. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more captivating discussions and insights into the world of film. Here's to many more great times ahead together.